Hello, my name's Alison Hardy, and this is the third and final of our series of 3 videos about planning lessons for progression in design and technology. The videos are designed to support chapters 12, 13 and 14 in section 3 of the 4th edition of the Learning to Teach Design and Technology Education book. We know this is a core text for many people involved in studying to become a design and technology teacher. This video is followed by a webinar, which is a conversation about teaching D&T amongst the 3 authors, that's myself, Sarah Davis and Matt McLean, where we answer questions from student teachers and talk more about each chapter. So, on to this chapter, Planning for Progression in Design and Technology. This chapter aims to support beginning teachers in understanding about the concept of design and technology capability, which will be the main focus of this video. There is also a brief overview about long and medium-term plans and how they support your planning for progression. Planning for pupils' progression involves knowing about your subject content, how pupils learn, teaching strategies that are available to you, which were discussed in the previous video by Matt and also in his chapter, and classroom management strategies. But planning for progression is actually addressed at every stage of your planning, from lesson plans, which Sarah discussed, through to units of work and year-long plans, that's medium and long-term plans, which I will discuss and talk about in this video. So what is design and technology capability? Design and technology capability has these 3 features: the active, purposeful application of knowledge and skills, movement of thought into action, and the simultaneous use of both thought and action. And what we need to remember is that these 3 features are taken as a whole, they're not taken as 3 discrete parts. And what we also need to look at are the words and the language that's used to describe each of the features. That it's the active, purposeful application of knowledge and skills. So it doesn't happen by chance, and it's the children choosing to do it, and they're making a decision and they're doing it in a purposeful way. That it's the movement of thought into action. So this happens throughout the design project where children are thinking and dwelling and contemplating an aspect of the design and make activity that you've set them. But at some point they need to take action. So it's where we think and we have ideas in our head or thoughts and questions, and it's the children then taking those thoughts and those ideas and doing something with them. Whether that's doing further research, asking questions, doing some modelling, whether that's in a sketch form, a 3-dimensional form or through CAD. But whatever it is, it's taking those ideas and making them into some form of reality. But equally, it's a simultaneous use of those thought and action. It's where an idea becomes developed as we do something, and how our hand and our mind and our body work together. So it's not the taking the mind and the hand as discrete, but it's taking the whole as it works together. So this is where Court Seaman talks about that capability is holistic rather than atomistic. And here I'm showing an example of different Lego pieces to really start to think about that what we might fall into is teaching the separate parts of knowledge, skills and understanding, and that we give children materials to handle and use and experiment and play with to improve their understanding, and they can do role play to understand users and different people's needs. So they can be these discrete parts, but until the teacher deliberately plans for how these come together, they may remain as the separate segments of learning, so that children aren't actually developing or showing the growth of their design and technology capability. The whole could be something simple, and it's a teacher's judgment that is used to think about the scaffolding and parameters that is given to the pupils to develop their D&T capability. And different thinking about different parameters will vary according to which year or which stage the pupils are at. So for example, if they've just entered secondary school, there may well be more parameters and more limitations, whether that's to do with the materials that they're given, the access to the different resources and the processes, whether they're working on their own or within a team. But as they progress through secondary school, those parameters may loosen, they may have different limitations as the teacher is deliberately planning to develop their D&T capability over time. So the holistic could be more complicated. The point that I'm trying to make here is that if everything is broken down, then it makes it more of a challenge for pupils to bring these individual activities, skills and knowledges together in such a way that allows them to develop their design and technology capability, or even to show their design and technology capability. So the next thing we need to think about is when we're planning for progression and we're planning for children to be given an opportunity to develop their D&T capability, we need to think about how will we know when the pupil has got it? When the design and technology capability is growing, what is the evidence that we're looking for? Well, the first thing that we'll look for is that they are using developing knowledge and skills in a creative and purposeful way. And again, there's that word, purposeful. But the other thing I want you to think about here is that word developing. So it's not that their knowledge is final. It's not that necessarily that you, the teacher, have taught them all the knowledge that they'll need for this particular design context. But actually what may happen is you may well give them a design context that you need to teach them almost some just-in-time knowledge or some just-in-time skills. And you wait for that to happen in response to them realising that they don't have all the knowledge and skills that they need to respond to a design and technology context. The other way to look at this as well is about this word creative. So they're given opportunity to be creative so that you can see that that is growing and developing. The next stage is that they take responsibility for the form and direction of their work. For me, this is where I would use the word autonomous. And I use it instead of the word that's often used, which is independence. Independence implies that they're going to work on their own, whereas autonomy relates much more closely to this taking responsibility, where they are making decisions for themselves. And occasionally, and probably more often than not, those decisions will result in them actually working for others or asking other people for advice and feedback. So it's not about working alone, but it's about them taking responsibility for themselves for their work. The next stage is that they modify their work in the light of personal reflection. So time needs to be built into a design and make activity, or any designing activity really, that they are given opportunity to stop, pause, reflect, but use that reflection to think about what they need to change or modify. So that is something that as a teacher needs to be built in. The fourth thing or fourth evidence of capability we might look for is that they can make informed judgments. So this isn't a shot in the dark. They're making decisions based on what they know at that time, their understanding of the context or the users that are going to use it or all of those things, but they are making informed judgments. And finally, evidence of capability is where children can handle uncertainty. And this to me is one of the central points about design and technology, is that we're teaching children to handle uncertainty. That although we want them to make informed judgments, one of the things that they may well come to a realisation of is they don't have all the knowledge and they don't have all the skills. And how do they handle that? Does that sometimes mean that they pull back on the complexity of the design, or they push forward and they maybe go out to seek to find some new knowledge for themselves and develop their skills? But all their time they're handling that uncertainty, that they don't know everything about the context. But that's what we need to be looking for when we're thinking about children's design and technology capability. So now what I want you to do is pause the video and turn to page 237 in the Learning to Teach book and locate a unit of work from your school to make some notes about using it for task 14.1. The next question to think about is, how do long and medium term plans help in the development of design and technology capability? As I've mentioned, the design and make assignment is central because the pupils take responsibility and the outcome is unpredictable. That relates to that idea of them handling uncertainty. And good planning from teachers involves thinking about pupils' stage and capacity to autonomously make decisions about their design and make projects, which is why long and medium term plans are crucial. So for long-term planning, there are a number of different things that we need to think about. You need to ensure that there is progression and coherence over 2 or more years. So think about how you're planning for design and technology capability over a couple of years at least. You as a teacher need to understand the structure of knowledge in design and technology, the depth and the breadth, and where you are introducing something new in one year and maybe revisiting it in the next year. And when you're looking back, are they doing something in lower secondary that's preparing them for upper secondary? If they're in their second or third year of secondary, are they building on something that they've done in their first year, and so on? So you need to have an understanding about how to deepen and broaden children's knowledge in design and technology. Now, I'm not going to go in and talk about here the word knowledge, because that takes us off into all sorts of different directions, but I do suggest you explore what we mean by knowledge in design and technology. And finally, long-term plans are usually written collaboratively. It's very difficult to take part or to do something like long-term planning on your own. You do need to be involved and working with other people in your department. And if you work in a department where it's just you, then I always recommend that you reach out to local schools or other schools to kind of talk about and share your long-term planning. But it is so crucial to do this in collaboration. So again, I want you to pause the video, turn to 237 in the book again, and now make notes about task 14.3. So medium-term planning. This is almost the final jigsaw puzzle. There's long-term, there's short-term, there's medium-term planning, and this all fits around developing design and technology capability. They're often known as units or schemes of work. They tend to plan for several weeks in succession or a full term. They are a cohesive series of lessons, so I recommend you go back and have a listen to Sarah's video and read chapter 12 to think about how you're taking each of those parts of a lesson or those separate lessons and putting them together to make a medium-term plan that allows for children's design and technology capability to develop. They often relate to projects or activities, which Matt discusses in chapter 13, but I think we need to be careful about when we label them by a project, because then as a teacher it's easy to become fixated on the outcome rather than the development of design and technology capability. And finally, the mode of the year affects medium-term plans. So whether you're in a school that does carousels, where the children move around the department and taught by different teachers based on their material knowledge, or if you're in a department where the children stay with a teacher for 1 year, there's pros and cons to both, but each of them take careful medium-term planning. So that really is a whistle-stop tour over 3 aspects of planning for progression. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you want to delve more into the topic and find the tasks I've referred to in the video, please read chapter 14. And finally, we're planning a webinar that's happening in early December 2020. There are spaces still available for you to sign up. If you do miss it, don't worry. We're going to release the webinar either as a series of podcasts on my Talking D&T podcast or as a video via YouTube. Thanks for listening.